New research shows the incomes of middle-class families are in fact shrinking. The Pew Research Center found decreases in nearly 9 of 10 major metropolitan areas, so it's not your imagination. Here's a look at the top 5 cities where the middle class shrank, but the upper class rose. You can see they are spread across 5 different states there. And here, the middle class shrank, but the lower class rose. Finally, the top places where the middle class shrank, but both the lower and upper class rose, those also span 5 different states. So what's going on? What's the difference between these locations? Danielle DiMartino Booth is the president of Money Strong LLC and a former Federal Reserve advisor. Tamara Drought is the author of the new book, Sleeping Giant, How the Working Class Will Transform America. Thanks to both of you for joining us. Really interesting study here, highlighting some of the things that people out there feel, and now we know statistically and mathematically that it's really true. Danielle, I want to start with you because we're looking at the reasons why these things are happening, and this research found that individuals moving into upper income tier tended to be either in finance or tech-heavy areas, or they were the beneficiary of the shale revolution. In your opinion, is that some of the things that is driving the move upward?
Absolutely. Here in Texas, we've especially been a beneficiary of the shale revolution, which gives many Americans who don't necessarily have a college education a pathway upwards to a high-paying job. Obviously, the same would be the case in technology and finance industries.
Tamara, the problem, though, is, of course, that all those things involve training, that even though to work in the shale revolution, you don't need to have a college degree, you do need to have some skills. So that's one of the challenges, right?
Well, I think what this report tells us overall is that we really need to recommit to, again, making job quality the #1 issue in this country. The reality is the majority of jobs available in our economy don't require a 4-year college degree. You know, I'm from that now extinct species called the blue-collar middle class.
Right.
That's what I grew up in. So there was nothing magical about those manufacturing jobs. They became good jobs because we fought to make them good jobs, in large part due to unions, but because of other things as well. We had a minimum wage that was actually, you know, pretty robust back in the 70s and 80s, and we've let that sort of decline. So I think it's a wake-up call. It says that we need to return to the idea that you can get a good family-sustaining job if you don't have a college degree, and we know what we need to do to make that a reality.
Right. But Danielle, I mean, one of the problems is, so you're talking about, you know, we have to train people and we have to focus on these better jobs, but when the government gets involved, they tend to sort of mess things up. I mean, 2 good points. You know, the administration has expanded the welfare state to try and help with this problem, but that doesn't encourage people to go out, work, and get more training. Also, you know, regulation and Obamacare have killed off a lot of entrepreneurs who are trying to get up off the ground because of these hurdles that they have to clear in order to do it. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. You know, I think that we're seeing shrinking tax bases in a lot of states such as California and Illinois because they impose such onerous regulations that it's really difficult to start a company in this country. And if you are a small business owner, it's also become prohibitive to even expand your company because of things like Obamacare and because you don't know what the economic forecast is going to be. So again, I'll bring you back to Texas where I am. Some 9,000 jobs have relocated from California since 2007, and the majority of them have landed here in Texas because it's considered to be a state where you can effectively conduct business at a profit and grow your workforce. That's really something that's been missing from the current recovery.
And Tamara, when you drill down into the data and you try and look at what are the reasons that some of these families have fallen behind, it's the debt load. And a lot of that is coming from student loans. I mean, that hits right at the heart of, you're saying, you know, that people need to have the right education for the right job, but a lot of people are going heavily into debt. They come out and they try and get that job, and they have that huge debt burden, and they never get out from underneath it. How do you deal with that problem?
I'm so glad you brought that up, Melissa, because you're exactly right. You know, one thing about the middle class is that America really invented it. You know, in the post-war years, we invented this idea of a broad middle class, and we've gotten away from the very things that made that possible, and that was public investment in things like higher ed, and things like infrastructure, and things like keeping our financial markets stable. Those are the things that really propelled the United States to be a middle-class nation, and we have walked away from all of those ideas. And we're seeing that now reflected in this new data, that the middle class is shrinking.
But Danielle, I mean, she's talking about public investment in education. One of the problems, and I know you're from the Federal Reserve, they've done great work on this, looking at the data, that when, you know, there are more loans available and when the government gives more money for higher education, all it does is drive up the price for everyone. I mean, that's, you know, not conjecture. There's data behind it that really proves that point. So how do you deal with that?
Absolutely. You know, I've done quite a bit of analysis on this very subject that shows that during the housing boom years, the fact that families were able to tap into their home equity to help finance their children's college educations actually contributed to the spiraling out of control costs of higher education. So it's, to me, a lot of what's gone wrong with the middle class is that they've literally been encouraged to take on more debt than they can afford, which puts them in a very precarious, vulnerable position and puts their households at risk of any little hiccup hitting them because of that heavy debt load. It sends them into a lower income tier.
Okay, we got to go. Tough problem. I'm not sure we solved it, but thank you.
Thank you.